In this demo, I want to show you a little bit about how you can just get an HTML file started with a CSS file and get some of those images that we just created and put them into a document that's web viewable. So first of all, I opened a new HTML document as well as a new CSS file. I haven't named them yet, so I'm going to save this HTML file as, let's do a save, and we're going to save it inside of JetSetter, which is on my desktop, and I'm going to save it as index right there in the root directory, index.html. Okay, and then for the CSS, I'm going to save it in the same folder, and we're going to go save as, I guess, and then we're going to save it inside of JetSetter, and we're going to call it base.css. That's what I'm going to call mine. Okay, and now I need to link the two files together. So inside of my index, just beneath the title, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just pasting to keep it quick and short so you don't have to watch me type. But I'm going to put a link for a style sheet, so it's a relationship a style sheet, and the type is text/CSS, and the href is directly to base.css because they are both in the same folder. So I'm going to save that, and so now I've got an empty page, and if I want to have something show up, I could go ahead and just jump over to the base, and I could start by giving it a rule for HTML, for the HTML tag. Remember, we have some different types of rules. We have tag rules, we have, or I should say selectors. So we have tag type selectors or HTML selectors. We also have class selectors, which starts with dot, and we have also ID selectors, which start with a hash symbol or a pound symbol. But this is going to be just a regular HTML one, so we're going to start with the actual tag of HTML, and what that's going to do is as soon as it sees this tag, it's going to apply it to this tag, which means the entire viewport and the entire everything, okay? And so what we can do is we can give it a background, okay, and I'm just going to let it do its autocomplete, and I'm going to tell it URL, alright, and for the URL I'm going to tell it to find the picture that we just created for it's the wing.jpg in a different demonstration, and if you want to see in the Finder where it is, I can go to the desktop, let's go to JetSetter, and here's the file we're currently working on with HTML, and here's the base CSS that we're typing in right now. And so it's going to refer inside of the images folder, so I already know right now that I can type images / and then inside of images we're looking for the thing called wing2.jpg. That was the one that we saved out, wing2.jpg. Okay, and what we're going to say is that we don't want it to repeat, so we would say no repeat, or like this, and I'll let it autocomplete. And then I want to go ahead, just for the heck of it, and I want to have it centered both left and right, as well as top and bottom. Okay, and let's just go ahead and stick with that for right now, and let's save that, and let's see what that does. And if we want to view that, we can go ahead and, alright, this is not the one that I just did. This is the one that's on the website, so I'm going to open a new tab, and I'm actually going to say File, and I will go to Open File. We'll look in our desktop inside of JetSetter, and then we're going to go ahead and choose the index file. We're going to open that. And you can see that right now what it's doing is it's just loading the picture, and I can't scroll, I can't really do anything with it. I can resize it, but it's not really helping me out because it's so giant, it's just showing it at 100%. Now there is something that you can do instead, and it's using a thing called background size, and the trick about it is it's sort of one of those newer CSS3 rules, so you have to have some different ways of stating it for different browsers, and I'm going to show you, instead of explaining how to type all of it out, I'm going to show you a link where you can actually copy and paste the code and read a little bit more about it, and you can learn some information. Just opened up this new tab, and it's at a website called csstricks.com. It's css-tricks.com, and I'll put this, make this available, this link to you, but you can look at this and read this this actual address. And it is, if you scroll down, a really good web page because it explains that it will resize it so that it fits within your browser window properly if you use this code that's called cover. So you can see here that what we've done is we've basically done everything that this has done, except what we didn't write is we didn't fix it in place. So that's something else that we want to do. What fixed means is that the background won't scroll whenever you scroll the content. So that's the first thing that we could go ahead and do in our document, is we can also tell it to be fixed. Alright, and then the next thing that you can go ahead and do is you can just take these things and we'll copy it, and I'll explain that in just a moment. And let's come down to the next line. We'll paste it, and I'm going to clean it up a little bit. I like to have things sort of properly placed in the code. So what this is doing is that this is for Apple or Safari things. This is for Mozilla, which is mostly going to be like Firefox, and this is for Opera. And then for background size, Google Chrome will work with this background cover. Some other browsers will. Anyway, and what this is going to do, this cover is going to do, is it's going to give it a different kind of ratio proportion as you resize the screen. So let's go ahead and save this. And now let's go back to Chrome or whatever browser you're using, and I'm going to go back to the file that's on my desktop, and I'm going to reload it. And you can see now it looks really different because it's doing something different with the image. As I resize it, you can see what's happening here, okay? And this is a lot more desirable because the composition is better. And now I have a place at the top up here for a title, and then I've got a place sort of off a little bit to the left of center for my content, because I know that this wing now is always going to sort of stay to the side. It might change as to how much it's showing depending on how wide I have my browser window open, but that's okay. As long as I can figure out percentages, it's going to work with this cover. Okay, and so I went ahead and placed that on the HTML, and the reason I put it there and not on the body background is because if I want those circles to show up on top of this picture, then the HTML is the very backmost layer, and then the body would come next because it's nested inside of the HTML tags. So then I could place the circles on the body background, all right, and then they would go on top of this image. And the reason that, now here's a trick that we didn't really discuss yet, is that technically, let me go back here, I can have more than one background image now with HTML5 and CSS3, and the very first one that you list is going to be the one that is on the very top. However, with all of these things that are telling me to cover the page, I wouldn't be able to put my other image here because it would also stretch that out so it would cover the entire viewport, and I don't want a giant overblown circle to be represented on the screen. I want them to be able to repeat properly, and so that's the way that I would have to do it, is to make the airplane picture the HTML background, and then I'll go ahead down here and I will create my body background image, and let's do URL again, and I remember that it's in my images folder, just like this address up here, but instead of wing2, I think what we called it was circles.png, and this time I want to repeat on the well, let me go ahead and type the whole thing out. Repeat on the x-axis because I want it to go left to right. Alright, and I want to go ahead and, let's just say, top and center. So that on the top and bottom, what it'll do is it'll show it from the top, and for the left and right, it'll center them on the viewport. And then I could also go ahead and tell it to be fixed as well. Okay? So let's go ahead and save that for right now, and I'm going to show you that it's not going to immediately show up. Okay, it's really important for you to see this so that you don't think you've done something wrong, but let's save it. I'll come back over here, I'll hit refresh, and you see nothing shows up. Now, why might that be? The reason is because we don't have any content inside of our body, and unless we actually have content in here, nothing's going to show up. So if I type some stuff here like this, and I save it, and I hit refresh, see, it's actually showing the picture. You don't realize that it is, but because I don't have enough content for it to actually show up, you don't see it. Oops, let me jump back here. Let's go back. Now if we were to put some paragraph tags around this, let's say, so that it actually takes up a little bit more space. I'm going to copy this several times, paste it several times. So now we've got some content. Let's save it. Let's jump back over here, hit refresh. Now you see the dots are starting to show up, okay? And they're only showing up as far as they have to. And that's the way background images typically work, is that they only show up as much as they have to show up. And if I kept on adding content, alright, I could keep on doing that. Save it again, hit refresh. You see that the rest of it continues to show. And I don't think that I like the way that that looks. I might decide that I don't care for that feather, or the opacity is not good enough. But anyway, you start to see how this is going to work. And now you see that the circles don't scale, but the rest of the image does. Okay? And we're sort of getting to this place. And you know what? These are a lot crisper on the edges, so maybe what we're going to have to do is go back and modify that picture so that it doesn't have that feather on the edge. Okay? Now, how can we do this though so that they'll still show up without all this content? Let's look at that.